Boy, oh boy, I sure am thrilled. I sure am happy. Andy Chalk, lefty lolcow of PC Gamer infamy, has delivered unto us a new piece of content we can go through. So, bravo to him. Thank you so much, Mr. Chalk, for once again making me smile. This is one that came out called Nexus Mods decides to allow an Oblivion Remastered mod that changes body type options to male-female and declares it's not a battleground for broader cultural or political debates. News by Andy Chalk. The mod was deleted multiple times before the Nexus Mods threw in the towel. I guess just a little bit of background. In the original Elder Scrolls Oblivion, you would choose your gender, male or female. And in the remaster, they've decided that actually it's better if you chose body type 1 or body type 2. Let's take a look at Mr. Chalk's article. He's apparently very, very upset that Nexus Mods has allowed a mod that changes body type 1, body type 2 to male and female. He's very upset about this. He's very, very upset. He wrote this big article and everything. And I think it's funny. One of the very, very small changes in Oblivion Remastered is a switch in the character creator from male and female bodies, as it was in the original, to body type 1 and body type 2. Most normal people would consider this a pretty bizarre change, I would say. What is it about having body type 1 and body type 2, which is strangely dehumanizing in an odd sort of way, at least if that's the only change that was made in this regard? Well, what's the point? What's the purpose of this? Why is male and female in a character creator? How come that is somehow inferior, in Bethesda's mind, to the far superior body type 1 and body type 2 options? Especially because, based off everything we know now, body type 1, body type 2 are just renames of male and female. If you choose body type 1, you are male. The game recognizes you as male. You're called brother. Quests can play out differently. If you choose body type 2, then the game treats you as a woman. You're female. There is no independent option for pronoun selection or gender selection and body type adjustment. It's simply, instead of male and female, they are called body type 1 and body type 2. And that's it. That's the only change. If anything, this does not match the game mechanics as well, and it can even be called a little bit misleading because, as I just mentioned, you might be thinking that you're just choosing your body type, as the character selector says, even though, in the world of the game, you are choosing your gender with that option. It's just not labeled as such. So Bethesda, classical fashion, has made a feature worse, shockingly. I guess, being Bethesda, we should be thankful they didn't remove the mechanic entirely. Many of the Skyrim players might be a little bit excited to learn, if they didn't know before, that in Oblivion you could actually do things like make spells. Ooh, yet another mechanic that was removed. And there's even more schools of magic and more spells and all kinds of stuff. Andy Chalk goes on and says, it's the sort of thing that would likely go entirely unnoticed were it not for the distressingly predictable explosion of outrage from the usual corners of toxic gamerdom, and, in short order, the creation of a mod that brought back the original male-female body options. Which, by the way, is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If anything, this is what modding is for. People to adjust games to their preferences. Let's also be clear as well. The reason that male and female was changed to body type 1 and body type 2 is because Bethesda wants to posture, right? They want to kowtow to a very small but very loud minority of people who think that the idea of choosing your gender in terms of male and female is not inclusive, I suppose, which is strange to me because from the way I see it, from what I observe about reality, if the aim is to be inclusive, right? You change something specifically because you wanted to be inclusive, but you didn't want to actually do the work of making your gender and your body type two different options. You just slapped a different name on male and female, and I guess in Bethesda's infinite wisdom, they thought that that would cover their bases. But if the if the aim truly was to be inclusive, which already is something I kind of have an issue with, not the concept of inclusivity. Obviously, it depends on the context and who you're trying to include. And I often think it's very counterproductive for things to include people that want to essentially subvert it and change it from within. But if you're trying to be inclusive, male and female covers essentially 99+% of humanity. And within male and within female, there are essentially an almost limitless amount of permutations of ways that that masculinity or femininity sort of expresses itself. Even coming down to the ways that males and females express a more androgynous kind of presentation. So male and female, those two options alone essentially account for virtually everybody. I know that currently there's a bit of a trend going on within certain circles, small ones, micro circles, that you're non-binary and you're very, very special and da-da-da-da-da. But I think that will fade out over time. It's certainly, like, temporally speaking, it's an anchor, right? It's a modern meta-political anchor that you've attached to this project and to this game. But anyway, while the male and female options, right, while they would cover essentially everybody, body type 1 and body type 2 are actually far more restrictive in the sense that you no longer choose whether you want your character to be presented as a kind of gender. Now it's just, well, here are the two body types that there is, and it matches far, far less people in the world than male and female. Do you truly think that the amount of people who match up to the specific body type 1 and body type 2 bodies of the Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered are more than the people who simply are male or female? Just strategically speaking, it's a really stupid change. And it's one that's obviously, and let's not kid ourselves here, it's very lefty coded, right? The article continues, for a few days, Nexus Mods made a point of removing the mod called Body Type Selector whenever it was uploaded and then re-uploaded, because of course these guys can't take no for an answer. Which is an interesting comment, I think, myself, when you have all of these games that are, you know, for lack of a better term, woke, and they constantly fail over and over and over, lose hundreds of millions of dollars, destroy brands, tarnish IPs. And I would say, well, I guess they can't take no for an answer. Whereas you might say, Andy Chalk, that they're fighting the good fight. I would say that this is what the people who are on the anti-woke side think about this. The article says, but now Nexus has changed course and decided to allow the mod to stand, which I, by the way, Rags, am happy for. I think Nexus Mods should take a very hands-off approach to the kind of mods that it hosts. I would be totally understandable if it didn't want the extremes to be present, like super political extremism, you know, like literal pro-terrorism kind of stuff. I don't think that's an unreasonable line to draw. I do understand that if Nexus Mods wants to be a viable platform for mods, it does have to have some kind of a standard that it sets for itself. And obviously, the standard you set for yourself is going to be on a vast spectrum, and you as the owner of that platform kind of get to decide what you're willing to give up in order to have the most permissive of standards. And I think that you can be too permissive. The idea, though, that it is simply unacceptable to host a mod where the male and female options are returned to the remaster from whence they came in the original, the idea that that's too far is nonsense. That is unreasonable. The reason, according to a community notice on the mod page, is that the mod itself doesn't violate any policies, and that the previous uploads were taken down not because of their content, but because of the uploader's behavior. The account of the original uploader was banned, but the mod, or a functionally identical one, resubmitted by another user, has now been allowed to stand. And I've heard this from a few places, and it's sort of secondary to the point of this article, but I suppose we'll address it really quickly. If you go to any place on the internet and you upload something that is within its guidelines, but you yourself have behavior that is deemed inappropriate for the website, you will be banned, not for what you uploaded in terms of content, but in terms of the way that you spoke to other people, the posts that you made, how you engaged with other users, etc. Probably happens all the time. And it does happen all the time across the internet. Let's not act like this is some strange, bizarre thing. It isn't. And if that is what happened, then that's what happened. Can't verify it, just sort of putting it out there. Not an unreasonable thing to happen. To clarify, the notice says, the mod was not taken down because of its content. As stated in the ban notice, it was removed due to the uploader's behavior. In the comments, the uploader expressed an intent to incite drama and endorsed an external site explicitly designed to host inflammatory content. This kind of behavior directly violates our community standards, which is, I don't know enough about the Nexus Mod terms of service or their community standards, but if that's what they felt, that's what they felt. I make no judgment on that part myself, as I'm not aware of the content specifically. The notice says, I actually think we have a picture of it here. Mr. Chalk has provided us with an image of it itself. We recognize that mods like this can bring sensitive discussions around gender and identity to the forefront. While these are important conversations, our platform exists to support creative expressions in modding, not to serve as a battleground for broader cultural or political debates. What we will not tolerate is trolling, harassment, discrimination, or any other form of toxicity that these discussions may provoke. Nexus Mods has pretty clearly has a left-leaning bias based off of the kind of content that it has allowed and disallowed in the past. And I do think that it is curious when push comes to shove, when enough eyes get on something, when a new game comes out that has a particular mod that addresses a topic that enough people find worthy of adjusting, they will do either one of two things. They will apparently either cave to the pressure, or they maybe take that moment, have a little bit of insight on their role as the hosters of this kind of expression, and then step back and say, it's not for us to decide. It's up if you want to use it. Now, I don't think that it is the latter. I believe that it's the former, based off of some of their previous statements and behavior, but who knows? Maybe people change. Maybe they're taking a much more libertarian kind of approach to what is on the site. I certainly hope that they do. I have used Nexus Mods in the past, and it has been very helpful for me to mod games like Stardew Valley, for instance. When I mod games, if it's not on the workshop itself, typically Nexus Mods is the place to go. Andy Chalk continues in his incredible PC Gamer article. So let's just cut to the chase. It's a flimsy excuse for a crappy decision, stating that the problem isn't the mod, but the intention of the author is patently, or patently, depending on what neck of the woods you're in, ridiculous, because the mod is literally the primary expression of that intent. So when I hear people say things like this, it makes me think that you are a simpleton. I think it is a mark of intelligence, certainly a mark of good faith, to be able to entertain the ideas that somebody else has without necessarily accepting them. I think that's an old Aristotle quote. Can't recall. Maybe don't try and project how you think the world is into every other mind around you. But it's the mark of intelligence to be able to get into somebody else's headspace and maybe consider that there are alternative points of view apart from your own. Maybe the way that you see the world and think about the world and all of the topics therein is not the only way, not the only possible way to view things. Most people learn this as children, but it seems that people oftentimes, when they become ideologues, right? A kind of person I often rail against. But when people become ideologues, they slip into that sort of second childhood. And they begin to exhibit these kinds of behaviors and maybe even a lack of behaviors is a better way to phrase it, that resembles the way that a child speaks, the way that an infant looks at the world, or the way that an actual stupid person looks at the world. Let's just look at that sentence. The mod is literally the primary expression of that intent. The mod is the mod. It is what it is. The intent behind the mod can be vastly different. Two people could make the exact same mod and have completely different intentions behind it. Is Andy Chalk so stupid that he can't possibly fathom the idea that maybe someone could make a mod like this and simply want it to be more faithful to the original? They want it to be more timeless. They want to remove a completely unnecessary change, one that was made that has obvious sort of a political dog whistle of a kind, I suppose. It's not really a dog whistle, though. Everyone could hear it. So it's not really a dog whistle, is it? It's just a lefty nod, right? It's present in many games that fail, though it is present in games that do well. I think that there are very few people who look at Cyberpunk 2077 and its character creator that essentially has no limitations on the mixing and the matching that you can do there, and says that's bad or that's woke. I guess the video that I uploaded on my main channel the other day, the woke Steam content detector, they did say that Cyberpunk is woke for that reason among many. Being able to select your pronouns, select your body type, breast size, what genitals you had, your everything, mix and match however you want. You want to be a dude who looks like a gal who's actually a guy who has a vagina, and then the game lets you do that. Mix and match however you want. Role play is whatever you want to be. If you feel the absolute need to see yourself in a piece of fiction in order to enjoy it, then, well, I guess you're a simpleton, but the option is there for you. Chalk goes on, the ban of the author's account cites Nexus Mods' policy against files that remove gender identity, including pronouns from a game, that have been intentionally put in place by a game developer when the removal is clearly to be divisive or cause hostility within the community or marginalize specific groups. Emphasis mine. But that in itself is absurd, because why else would you remove pronouns or other indicators of gender identity except as an anti-trans statement? This baffles me. I think that a lot of these lefty types need to come together and they need to decide what exactly their position is so that we can be a little bit more consistent about it. I'll just go by what Andy Chalk said himself here. That last sentence. But that in itself is absurd, because why else would you remove pronouns or other indicators of gender identity except as an anti-trans statement? They removed body type 1 and body type 2, which, by the way, are nominal only. They removed body type 1 and body type 2 as options and simply swapped the titles of these options back to male and female. I will say this again for emphasis through repetition. They removed body type 1 and body type 2, and they replaced it with male and female. And Andy Chalk's complaint is that they removed pronouns or other indicators of gender identity. I don't know about you, though I will make a guess, but I would say that choosing male or female could be considered an indicator of gender identity. And I'm no expert. Clearly, Andy Chalk is operating on a different level than the rest of us. But I always thought that male and female were indicators of gender identity. I know when I go outside, it just so happens by a stellar coincidence that 99.9% of the people who call themselves female are female. And same with men. just a crazy coincidence. Obviously, there are outliers. And I guess, I suppose, I don't know if I've ever really made my position that clear. But as far as I'm concerned, if you actually are transgender, if you're born a biological man, but you present yourself with a sufficient level of effort, and you put work towards it, and you present yourself as a female, and you are decently enough convincing, I will call you a woman. I will call you she, her. I have no issue doing this. I do not hold this super hard line on, like, I wouldn't call Buck Angel, as I've used in the past, I wouldn't call Buck Angel a woman, and I'm not going to call Blair White a man, right? Even though that might be their DNA. It's my stance on it, just for clarity. But you're going to have to work a little bit harder than putting on a dress to have me consider you to be a woman. You're going to have to try a little bit harder than that, but you are, of course, welcome to do that. I'm a pretty libertarian guy. I'm very live and let live. You do you. That's what's great about this fucking amazing country. Okay? Maybe Andy Chalk should be asking, how come Bethesda, instead of simply having these two things be independent of one another, like, take Helldivers 2, for instance, right? In Helldivers 2, you're always covered up by armor anyway, and you could even say that it's probably thematically relevant that your Helldiver doesn't have much of an actual, I suppose, personness, right? But we're not going to get into that discussion. In Helldivers 2, you choose a body type, 1 or 2, and you choose between 2 male voices and 2 female voices, and you can mix and match however you'd like. You can be a big gal, you can be a little dude. And that's an option for you. Choose what you wish. I don't think Helldivers 2 calls the 2 female voices. It's like voice 1, voice 2, voice 3, voice 4, which is a little cringe. Come on. But it's not a big deal. Whatever. Roll your eyes and move on. But again, it's this idea of not being able to understand where other people come from. Andy Chalk is asking, why? Of course it's anti-trans statement. Of course, that's the only reason you would make a mod like this that's faithful to the original Oblivion game. There can be no other option. It must be this. This is the lens through which Andy Chalk views the world. Us and them. My tribe, their tribe. Anyone who isn't completely on board with me must be not even disdainful of it or ignoring it or not caring. They must be against it. Affirmatively against it. He goes on. Justifying the change as restoring the game to its original state doesn't hold water either, since we're on the topic. You're literally playing a remaster, literally a changed, updated version of an old game, and the move to body types is minute next to the revamped graphics, leveling system, voice acting, and everything else we've detailed. I don't follow this argument. I understand what he's saying. I don't follow it in terms of, I think this is stupid, right? It is a subjective aspect, what does and doesn't sort of give you the Oblivion feeling, right? We all played Oblivion. I'm just going to assume that everyone listening to this has played Oblivion. If you haven't, you should play the original. It's look, I ain't saying it's good. I'm saying it's wacky and you'll enjoy it, all right? It's a goofy game, and I like it for what it is. But we all played that game at different points in our lives, different reference points for where we were in our lives. We often will compare it to the games we played before it, after it, where we were, what we were doing, our headspace. So everyone's sort of anchor on what Oblivion is to them is going to be different. When I say The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, it is 4, right? Yeah, I just checked. It is 4. There was that little voice in the back of my head that was like, yo, if you say the wrong number, people are going to make fun of you. So I just wanted to double check. Okay. Boom. Boom, 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 boom. When you think about Oblivion, different things will come to your mind than things that come to my mind. I think of certain items, certain weapons, certain memories, certain places in the game, certain voice lines, and those might be different from yours, based off of the parts that you played most or the parts that had the most impact on you. It's one of the really amazing things about video games is that you and I can both think about the same game, and we can have similar or different experiences. And both of those is interesting as a subject of conversation, that I can play the same game with someone else and have a completely different experience. But ultimately, even if we play the same content and we can bond over that and we can discuss it, these sort of emergent memories and thoughts that we have as a result of that can be, they can just be different, you know? I think that's cool. It's one of the cool things about games, one of the many cool things about games, and one of the reasons why I would say it's probably my favorite hobby. Other than fucking Solari's mom. Andy Chalk says, if you want the original experience, you can pick up the original game for $20 on Steam or GOG. Put your money where your mouth is. So he says, if you don't like everything in the remaster, all 9 yards, every change, if you feel the need to want to adjust anything, and a Bethesda game, the game's famous to a fault for the modding scene, to the point where I know when Starfield was coming out, they were pushing hard that it was a modder's paradise, and they knew that they were leaning super hard on the idea that if they fucked up with something, don't worry, there's gonna be someone out there who mods it and fixes it for us. Whatever. I think Bethesda's getting a bit too comfortable with the modding scene, right? But that's its own discussion. I have not played the remaster yet. Been too busy with other things. I would like to play it. I have fond memories of Oblivion, warts and all. I would like to play the remaster. I have heard from many people at this point that it gives them the Oblivion feelings while being different from Oblivion. And I think that's really neat. I'll see for myself one day, but until then, I will defer to something that I have heard from many people of which I trust, whose opinion on games is one that I give some reverence. Andy Chalk is basically here saying, modding's bad. He's essentially taking an unironic anti-modding position by saying, what, you want to change a game? You want to change a remaster? Well, if you want to play the original, then go and buy it. Not understanding that, obviously, you can prefer or want to play a remaster but be annoyed or want to change little parts of it and prefer it, right? There are obviously things about... what would even an example... Okay, I got an example. One came to me. Vermintide and Vermintide 2. I love both of those games. I've played them both, particularly Vermintide 2. Vermintide 2, I think, is a really excellent game. I'd highly recommend it. There are some sanctioned mods that you can use, and I think some of them technically replicate functionality in the first Vermintide that were not present in the second in terms of some UI elements. If the idea if Fat Shark, the developers, had said, no, how dare you want to change this little thing about Vermintide 2? If you want the original experience, go play the original. In much the same way that Chalk is saying, ridiculously, that the entirety of an experience has to be preserved perfectly, or you might as well go play a different game. Nonsense. These are the kinds of things that game journalists say that make me wonder if they play video games. Because sometimes I feel like we just don't have any common ground for the experience. Like, I couldn't talk to Andy Chalk as if he was a video game player, like he played video games. Because I'd just be talking past him and he wouldn't understand the feelings and the experiences that video games give to me. He just wouldn't understand them. He's so out of the loop. Like he's not even a part of this hobby. Yeah, a game journalist who doesn't know anything about video games. Must be a day that ends in S, I guess, to keep it topical. Andy Chalk continues. What makes this change in direction all the more disappointing is the fact that Nexus Mods has taken strong progressive stances in the past. Cringe. A Spider-Man Remastered mod that removed pride flags was quickly banned, as was one that removed pronouns from Starfield, and another that erased a queer relationship from Baldur's Gate 3. I think all of those mods should be allowed, personally. I am a bisexual guy. I think having pride flags everywhere is super fucking insecure and it's mega cringe. That's my stance on it. I don't need to constantly be staring at pride flags all over the place to feel like I'm I'm valid or whatever. The way that I see myself, my validity, it doesn't come from without, it comes from within. I don't need all of this corporate posturing when I know that it's empty and there's nothing behind it. Just make a game, and I'm going to assume that you don't hate gay people if you don't ever exhibit behavior that makes me think you hate gay people, okay? I don't need to see you wearing a pride flag for me to think that you're an ally or that you're okay with me fucking dudes, all right? I don't need to see you giving me the thumbs up as I suck on a big, fat, plump, juicy, delicious. Ignore me. Ignore me. No, pay attention to me. And Nexus made no bones about why those mods were removed. After taking down the pronoun-removing Starfield mod, for instance, Nexus Mods said, "We stand for diversity and inclusion in our community and the removal of diversity while appealing to many." Gee, I wonder why. Does not promote a positive modding community. Similar statements were made about the Spider-Man and Baldur's Gate 3 mods. I think a lot of people... Here's the reality. Companies and cultural movements have necessarily, especially by their words, everything's political, right? Everything's political, your sexuality's political, you are political, blah, blah, blah. They put so much emphasis on these things being political, and they make so much noise about these symbols and icons being political, that it creates this tie to modern-day meta-politics that exists outside of a gaming world. The nature of that gaming world will depend on how much it can break immersion. And I'm playing a game, and I see trans flags and gay pride flags. If I see iconography of real-life political candidates, either way, when I see Trump allegories, and I don't even like Trump, okay? But when I see this stuff in games, I'm like, well, my immersion's it's wavering, or it can be shattered. It depends on what it is and how it's presented. And if I feel like the devs have put this stuff in games to try and tell me that, hey, gay people, they're heckin' valid, okay? Thank you, game. That's really awesome. Now I'm thinking about you and the developers and the game process, and I'm no longer thinking about being immersed in this world that you've created and I've paid for. Gee, thanks so much. I didn't think that you hated gay people. But thanks for ruining my experience, or at least damaging my experience in some way, to really let me know that you're super in support of gay people. Thanks so much. Now I think that you're insecure, and I think that you're posturing. If anything, by putting this stuff everywhere in the game, I'm thinking that you don't actually mean it. You're just trying to virtue signal. You're just trying to get points. That it's empty. That you are insecure in your position, and you feel the need to have to shout it from the rooftops and put it in everything. And I feel like I'm being used as a pawn, unwittingly, without my consent. Because, consent's really heckin' important, my deuterinos. Oh, well. Oh, well. Let's move on to the end of this article. So, why does the body type selector mod get a pass? Maybe anti-trans sentiment ranks a little lower on the poll than other forms of queer phobia on Nexus Mod. Jeez, it's like a bingo card of words that make me not care about anything you have to say ever. Or maybe the moderators are just getting tired of the whole moderating thing. Okay, this is just chalk whinging. It's just him whinging and whining and complaining because he thinks that you should not allow such a hateful mod like this to exist, because if it is, you're kowtowing to the chuds and to the anti-woke people, right? You're doing a really bad thing, that you need to take a very hard and firm stance that if the developers... God, if the big corporation says something we agree with, you should not be allowed to express opinions or host anything that goes against it. Remember when the left used to be like anti-corporation? A lot of you might not actually remember that. I guess it just goes to show they're super pro-corporate when the corporation says the right words, when they put in the right options in the video games. And when it comes to modding, I mean, my position is... It's a single-player game that you've purchased the rights to. I know you don't technically own it. Yes, I understand. But you bought the game. It's a single-player game. You should be able to mod whatever you want about it. Mod it to your heart's content. Put in whatever crazy stuff you want. It's your experience. Go for it. Obviously, if you're going to be a public-facing hoster of these mods, you would be wise to hold yourself to standards, to not be overly permissive of everything. But I think you should be very permissive. And if this is the kind of stuff that we are not allowed to mod, I have no idea where the line would be. If it is too hateful, it is too foul, if it is just unacceptable to return a game to its original setting, to change body type 1 and body type 2 to male and female. If that's unacceptable, then God forbid Nexus Mods is consistent, because then we're in for a world of hurt. If you don't like the mod, Andy, and it's clear that you don't, you think everyone who downloads the mod is super hateful or anything like that, I probably won't, just because it's work and it doesn't bother me that much, and I prefer male and female. It makes more sense to have it be male and female. I recognize that it is what it is. I am selecting male and female. They just changed the name of it. I accept it for what it is. I know what it is, right? I'm making this video criticizing it. If I could just, if you booted up the game and it said, would you rather select male, female, or type 1, type 2, I'd click male and female, right? It's just not that big of an issue for me to go out and start modding it. I'll probably play it vanilla when I stream it or when I play it later to sort of get whatever the experience is that they're going for, to see the changes as they've been made. Let's wrap this puppy up. Whatever the reason, the bottom line is that Nexus Mods seemingly recognizes that this body type selector mod exists as a dog whistle for trans... See, here's the thing. Dog whistle for transphobes. I think people just find body type 1, body type 2 to be symptomatic of a modern lefty political meta aspect that they don't want seeping into their games, because it gets in the way of their ability to enjoy the experience, or it damages that experience in some way. And that, quite frankly, Mr. Chalkaroony, is not up for you to decide. Whatever happened to my truth and my world and how I see things, and subjectivity is super important. I guess all that shit goes out the window the moment it's an opinion that they don't like. But doesn't seem to care as long as the mod author doesn't explicitly say so. Yeah, Andy, this is something where we try not to police people's thoughts. I know that you're lefty. You really want to police people's thoughts. You're big into thought crime. You want to read into the intentions of everyone all the time. You secretly assign people, not so secretly, you assign to people opinions and attitudes that they simply do not have. The fact that you cannot fathom why anybody would want to play with a mod like this and isn't a rampant queerphobic, transphobe, blah blah blah, it's a pretty titanic self-report, my dude. Sorry, my body type 1. That's not great, and based on their reaction to the cave-in on social media, I suspect Nexus Mods may be about to learn a lesson we all should have absorbed long ago. Appeasement doesn't work. Well, in other things, they're appeasing to you. Would you say that when it comes to the things you mentioned, the Baldur's Gate and Spider-Man stuff, they were appeasing you, and you like that, and you approve of it, and you think that's the way things should be? And maybe it isn't about appeasement. Maybe appeasing is just a secondary aspect of a stance that they would rather take, which is a more hands-off, libertarian, live and let live, as long as it's not super extreme, or whatever it can be on. Which I hope is what they're taking, Nexus Mods. I doubt it. This might be a one-off entirely. It might be completely just the right amount of popular with the right crowds and the right amount of people that they're just going to let this one slip and slide. I don't know. I guess time will tell. I can hope. I think that's it's a really big difference between myself and primarily the left, I've noticed, though the right wing is definitely guilty of this in their own ways, though I don't think it's necessarily to the same degree. I'm a liberal. I'm very live and let live. As long as you're not infringing on other people in any meaningful way, you do you. You make your games, you make your mods, you make your stuff, you create, you express yourself, you do all that stuff. Be you. Go knock it out of the park. You go get 'em, Tiger. Call yourself whatever. Express yourself as whatever. Be trans, be gay, be whatever. I don't have an issue with any of that. The issue is when you start to try and control my behavior or try and control other people's behavior and demand things of other people. That's where the line gets crossed. Okay? And I think if you want to encourage a social pressure that is sufficiently strong enough to essentially act as the mechanism to enforce what I believe are unjust things, I'm going to have a problem with that as well. The Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remaster has a mod that you don't like. Interesting. Move on, man. Move on. It's content for me, either way. And you would be wise to remember that, Senor Choco. Господин Chalk. Let it go. Take a deep breath. Count to 10. Forwards, backwards, whichever way works. Not everything is some anti-trans conspiracy by the Chuds. I think some people just want to go back to the way that things were. In this sense, that's harmless. Obviously, if people are like trying to get rid of gay marriage, then I have a problem with that. You know, back to the way things were. But it's body type male and female. If body type male and female is unacceptable to you, you are crazy. You are a psycho weirdo. You need to take a long look in the mirror and ask where it all began to fall apart. Okay? And maybe if you do find male and female just unacceptable, I don't know, maybe learn how to fucking roleplay a little bit in this role-playing game. If you can't fathom the idea of role-playing as a male or female, man, I don't know, maybe video games aren't your thing. Maybe you should only play tabletop. Maybe you should only play Dungeons and Dragons with all of your gay retard friends, when you could be the most specialist, non-binary, whatever it is in your fantasy world, and everyone can clap for you when you shoot the troll chuds with your magic crossbow or whatever, and they can clap, and you could talk about how brave you are. Maybe just do that if you can't handle choosing male or female in an RPG. Okay, I like Dungeons and Dragons, actually. That's the end of the article. That was magical, Andy. You know, all that stuff they say about you, I mean, it's true. You're a moron. But you are funny. You do amuse me. And more than many, you are sort of a vehicle for conversation, so you know, you're not useless. At least you have that going for you. At least all of the time and effort that you've put into quote-unquote journalism, games journalism, at least you're not worthless. So good on you, Andy. Keep it up. I await your next magnum opus with bated breath. And to all my body type 1s and 2s out there, I will catch you later. But if you're body type 3, don't you fucking talk to me, okay? This isn't a freak show. All right, get with the program.